Again, this is a review session. There may be some new bits, but most of this, many of you may have already seen or are familiar with. My name is Crystal Carrillo. I am a teacher on special assignment here at the Research Planning and Assessments Department. I'm joined with my supervisor, Michelle Mages, and she's going to support with the chat with any questions that come in with the Q&A. And Michelle, did you want to say anything before we start?
Just hello, and thank you all for joining us.
All right. Okay, so we do want to respect your time. So we have put the link to the deck in the chat. So you can go ahead and access all of the slides and materials that are linked within the slides from that. We do have some norms for learning. Please hold on to one or all of these norms for learning as we go through this session, and hopefully you will be able to feel really prepared for when you do assess your students in the STAR reading and math for the spring window. Here are our session outcomes. We are going to go over just the rationale for this adoption of STAR for this school year, very briefly, the design and administration. We'll spend a bulk of the time looking at 5 key reports that will help you to learn more about your students at the end of the year and to make some connections with the standards-based report card and the STAR results. Lastly, we'll go over some STAR resources and ways that you can reach out for further support. So again, with the new STAR assessments for this school year, our district in the fall of 2022, along with the San Francisco Board of Education, made the commitment to focus on improving student outcomes, adopting these 3 goals with regard to 3rd grade literacy, 8th grade math, and college and career readiness for high school students. So with that, the superintendent came up with these interim goals that are tied to those overarching goals that tie in with goal number 1, which is 3rd grade literacy. And then the sub goals for those are grade K, end of year reading, interim assessment results, grade 1, end of year reading interim assessment results, and grade 3, fall reading interim assessment results. So those results have been compiled to see if our students are meeting those goals as a district. The second interim goal was towards 8th grade math, and those are more so for the upper grade and middle school grades. However, we know how all as students progress in their learning from K on up, it is all connected. So with that, we do have the STAR assessments to inform how our district is doing with those goals and interim goals. And this is the SFUSD assessment plan, and grades K1 and 2 are the 3 grades that do assess with the STAR for all 3 windows. As we know, the upper grades and middle schools will be doing SBAC this spring. So our summative will be the STAR assessments. The STAR is available year-round, so you can give the STAR outside of these prescribed windows and as for progress monitoring. However, these windows listed here, specifically for our spring window from April 22nd to May 17th, are the required windows, and the date is important as our district's benchmarks for the STAR assessments are tied to the dates that the students take the STAR reading and the STAR math. For students in Spanish pathway classes for grades 1 and 2, they will continue to take STAR reading Spanish and STAR math Spanish for this last and final spring window. If you have any newcomer students that may have just joined your class and you're unsure of whether they have been in this country for more than 1 year, you can select this STAR students by EL and entry LEP date report that is for DNA Illuminate, and it will list any students who have been in the country for less than 1 year. They are not required to take any of the STAR assessments. However, if you still would like to administer it to them, especially if Spanish is their home language, you can go ahead and administer that optionally to those students. And as I go on with this presentation, please ask any questions. It will probably be best to ask them in the chat or the Q&A. Michelle will be monitoring those, and if I'm going to answer that later on in the session, she'll let you know. However, if there are any questions that she might be able to answer, she will go ahead and just type those in. So now we're going to go on with reviewing the STAR administration. For teachers, the main goal of the STAR is to make the data from your students actionable. So any insights that you make from the data that you receive from the reports after your students take the STAR, hopefully you can use it to inform your instruction to really target it toward their strengths and their next steps. I'm going through these pretty fast. We do have over 60 slides. So the assessment design and the administration slides will just be very brief for you. So one thing about the STAR computer adaptive tests, so that would be the STAR early literacy, reading, and STAR math tests, and in particular STAR reading and STAR math for grades 1 and 2, is that the computer adaptive nature makes it so that what happens after a student answers correctly on the first answer, they have this standard error of measurement. It starts at an easier, or now that it's the end of the year, it will just pick up where the student left off from their last administration. And then if a student gets a correct response, the level of difficulty of the question will increase. If they continue to get the question items correct, the level of complexity for the question will continue to increase. In this example here, the student got the first 2 questions correct, and then the third item, they got the answer incorrect. So what happens next, once the student gets an incorrect response for an item, the computer will adapt and either reduce the level of difficulty for the next item, and will go so forth until the end of the test, which is a total of 34 questions. So in this graphic representation, the green dots are the correct response and the red dots are the incorrect response, and you can see the change in the level of difficulty of the items as the student progresses on through the entirety of the test. Here are the 3 computer adaptive assessments that are available to our district. For STAR reading and STAR math, it usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes for students to complete the assessment. However, that will vary from student to student. And the required assessments are STAR early literacy for grade K and STAR reading and STAR math for grades 1 through 8. There was a question in the chat regarding newcomers with less than 1 year still do not have to take the Spanish STAR testing, and that's correct. If they have not been in this country for a year or more, they're not required to take any of the STAR tests, whether that's Spanish or English. However, you do have the option to still give it to them if you would like to. Here is a little bit more information about the CAT assessment design for each of the 3 computer adaptive tests. You can see the different domains for each one. And for STAR early literacy to STAR reading, these domains will build towards these domains for STAR reading. Another thing to note is that the STAR early literacy Spanish and STAR reading Spanish are created with the Spanish language development standards, so they are very unique to the different skills that the Spanish language entails. They're not just translations of English reading items. For the STAR Math and STAR Math Spanish, the domains are the same. It's just the test for STAR Math Spanish is written out or spoken in Spanish if you have the audio on. The thing that we would like to really remind folks of is that for the computer adaptive tests, they are all built on the learning progressions for the content area that they are for. So for example, Star Early Literacy and Star Reading are on the reading learning progression that the Renaissance folks created using our state standards in reading. And as you can see, they progress from the pre-K standards all through the way to the grade 12 standards. And why this is important is I know many of you have run the instructional planning student report, and you've seen the focus skills that are listed below your students' results. Those focus skills are tied directly to these learning progressions, and maybe you have wondered why, oh, why is my student showing focus skills in a grade above their grade or below their grade? And it's because in a way the tests are grade agnostic, because since it's computer adaptive, students may get items that are more toward skills outside of their grade level. And this is just a graphic depiction on how the focus skills tied to the learning progression build on each other as students progress from pre-K through 12. If you'd like to learn more about the learning progressions, there is a link to the documents that include what is in each learning progression for Star Reading, Star Spanish, and Star Math. So now is going to be a brief overview of the student experience when they actually take the test. They'll log into Clever. Primary grade students may use Clever badges. There is a link here on how to access Clever badges through your Teacher Clever page. There's also a link to how to find out what students' passwords are in case they're not using Clever badges or they have to have their password for that initial login to the Chromebooks or the device, or even to their Clever accounts. And then we've also linked to the deck from the Getting Started with Tech PD that we had earlier in the fall, and the webinar recording for that session, just in case you'd like to review that and hear about any ideas on how students can get more practice just using technology with the apps that our district approves, such as Seesaw. So Renaissance did update the tiles for when students log into their Renaissance accounts from Clever. So instead of the blue tiles, they're going to see these tiles. And for students who are still working on reading, you can use the little shape with the letters inside to indicate the corresponding tile for the test you would like them to take. We do have a link here to the STAR sample videos in case you'd just like to review what it looks like for a student for STAR Reading or STAR Math in both grades 1 and 2. Just to caveat, the sample STAR demo videos were taken by adults, so the items that you'll see in these videos may not align with the items that your student will actually take. Here is a feature of the STAR computer adaptive tests. So although the entire test is not timed, each item is timed, and it's different for each of the computer adaptive tests. So we do have this link here for you to see how many minutes for each item for each type of test. Please know that for grades K through 2 students, we have already turned the time extension on. So that's going to be the default for all K1 and 2 students. If a student has 15 seconds or fewer left to answer a question, they'll see this clock at the top. So it's important to let them know that they might see this clock prior to them taking the test. And that just gives them an idea that, oh, I need to select my answer and select next. Otherwise, it will time out, and that is just a skipped question that is counted as incorrect. So I see that there is a question in the chat about, are we still able to remove the time function in the I will talk about the accommodations later on. So there is that type of accommodation for students who might need that. Oops. When the student selects their answer for an item, they'll select next or siguiente in Spanish for them to go on to the next item. For students using Chromebooks, they may need to scroll down to be able to see this next button. And here we have the option to pause or stop the test. At the corner of their testing page, they will see a gray box that says stop test, and they'll be given 3 options, either to resume later, to stop the test entirely, or to cancel having pressed that stop test button. It's important to know that for resume later, that means I just want to pause my test and I'm going to come back to it. And if a student does do that, they will have 8 days to complete the unfinished test. So if a student comes back on day 9 and tries to resume a pause test, it will start them from the very beginning. If a student selects stop test, that means you're canceling this administration and they're going to start over from the beginning again the next time they access the test. And then obviously cancel is just to cancel what they just did and just to resume the test right then and there. If a student does select the stop test button and wants to resume later or stop the test, they will need to enter this monitor password, which is admin, all lowercase ADMIN for the entire district. So this is the monitor password that will be used. So this is just a measure so that students aren't pausing or stopping a test willy-nilly. Many students will, at this point, raise their hand and ask for some help. And hopefully you will have this on hand to know that our district's monitor password is admin. So since this is our interim assessment, we do want to encourage everyone to administer the tests with fidelity. And so we'll just go over a few best practices for administering STAR. And Michelle is going to go ahead and present on this slide.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So for administration, we have a few recommendations and configurations to provide. We've been working in collaboration with our DOT team and our ELA curriculum and instruction team to try to find the best ways to help support how to approach assessing students. And hopefully by now, you have some routines in your class that are already happening. If you don't have routines that are listed here, I would recommend, just stick to the routines you have. That's fine. You don't need to teach new routines at this point in the year. That's okay. But start with the routines you have and use those. So if whatever routines you have for controlling sound, use those. There's not necessarily a right or wrong way to help with keeping students focused and hopefully keeping the noise level. As long as you have a routine, great. Also, you may want to have heterogeneous groups. We recommend using center time or small group time to sort of break up the testing so that half the class is testing, half the class is working on something else, and then switch. That way you have a few kids to monitor at once, and then you can switch and then monitor the other half of the class. So you can see here we have, the 2 red tables with the yellow squares indicating where the students who are taking the test are seated. They're not right next to each other, but those would be the 2 groups that are taking the test in this example. And then after they're done, or the next day, then the other half during center time could take the test, as an example. And we recommend you putting students in heterogeneous groups for taking the assessment, because you don't necessarily want all of your high need students right next to each other trying to take the test at the same time. It's fine to just let them be all mixed up together when they're taking the test. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Any other questions around that? You can let students take breaks, as Crystal shared, and the test will pick up where they left off within 8 calendar days. So if there's a fire drill or what have you, things happen. Everyone can pause the test, go do the fire drill, and come back. So these are just some ideas, and we have a link here to some center time activity structures and other activities that students could do if they're at the other non-testing tables as well. So I'm going to turn it back over to Crystal for the rest.
Thank you, Michelle. So here we just have 4 steps you can take to make sure that the test is given and taken with fidelity. You'll plan, prepare, motivate, and monitor your students. So this will ensure that the results that you get from your students hopefully are the best that they can do. We know that there are some things that are out of your control as a classroom teacher, but if you have some of these things that we'll talk about in place, that will hopefully make for a smooth administration for Window 3. We do have these documents for each of the computer adaptive tests. They have the step-by-step administration instructions, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with that by now. For STAR Reading and STAR Math, unless for STAR Math there is an audio feature turned on, there are no headphones needed. Just make sure all the students have their login credentials ready for when the assessment day or time comes. So here are a few ways to prepare students. Just make sure they take care of all their personal needs before the test starts. You can read the instructions from those administration guides. We've also linked the STAR test manuals from Renaissance here that have even more information on how you can prepare your students for these tests. For STAR Math, students can have some scratch paper for the test, and you do not have to collect those scratch papers afterward. And lastly, make sure students have something quiet to do if they finish the test before the rest of the class, just so that they are occupied and that it avoids distractions. Make sure you motivate your students and encourage them. You know them best, you know what motivates them. So use your teacher knowledge of all of your students on how to make sure that they're feeling good before the test, and remind them that it's important for them to do their best, because the results of the test will help you to be their best teacher, since it will teach you about their reading and math development. As the students are taking the tests, go ahead and circulate around the class just to see if there's any technical issues you can help with. Remind students that they must select the next button in order to go to the next question. And also just make sure that they're taking the correct assessment. So if they are in a Spanish pathway, that they're taking the Spanish reading and math. And if they're in a non-Spanish pathway, they're taking the English reading and math test. So here we are going to now talk about the assistive tools. There was a question about the unlimited time, and yes, that is still available. We have the Renaissance help file on how to turn on these assistive tools. There's a video here that you can watch to see what is available. And also this link right here will show you how to turn on the audio support for STAR Math. Just like the time extension, the STAR Math audio is a universal support. So as a teacher, you can decide if you want to turn on the audio for your students for STAR Math. Just be sure that they have headphones for that administration, and the test will read the math problems to them if the STAR Math audio is turned on. For STAR Reading, there are assistive tools for students on IEP and 504 plans, and you can learn more about that in the assistive tool help file. Additionally, we do have this how-to doc here where it says set preferences. Your Renaissance account has preferences where you can turn these different assistive tools on and audio supports on for your students. So we've reached about the midpoint of the presentation. I'm just going to take one collective mindful moment with a breath here. You can go ahead and join me. Okay. We're going to now move on to the STAR data and reports. So once your students have taken the STAR reading and the STAR math, you're able to access the results immediately in your Renaissance accounts. You also log in through Clever if you are a classroom teacher, and all these tiles here on your Renaissance homepage, including each of the computer adaptive tiles and the reports tile, is where you will access the reports module for the Renaissance platform. There is a video here that will walk you through this process, and the reports that I will be talking about each have a link to a how-to document that gives you step-by-step instructions on how to run that particular report. One thing to remember for each of the STAR reports in the Renaissance platform, the scaled score is the score that is in each of the reports, and it's more than just a number. So that means because it is a criterion reference score, meaning it is based on students' skills and performance, that's what gives you those focus skills in the instructional planning report. That's what helps the platform to know where students are in for the standards mastery report. So there is a lot that goes into that scaled score number, and this graphical representation just shows the student within the 0 to 1400 scale score range, where they stand. That gives you information on their student performance, where they are in the learning progression skills, and will also help you to locate any instructional resources that tie in with their skills that they are still working on. So now I'm going to go over these 5 key STAR assessment reports. As you know, there are several reports in the Renaissance platform, but we'll only go over these 5. We do have a link to the Teacher's Guide to STAR reports, which will detail more reports than I'm going to go over here. However, it does have a brief explanation of each of those reports that are included in the Teacher's Guide, in addition to a how-to document on how to run that report. The first report we're going to go over is the STAR record book, and that is in your Renaissance accounts. It's where you will see students' latest computer adaptive test results for both reading and math. You may see a few icons in your record book for individual students. If you see this triangle with an exclamation mark, that just means the student did not get through the practice questions for STAR reading. So either they just need to try again, and they may have not selected the right answer for the practice test, or they may not be ready for the STAR reading, and that means that they are probable non-reader. If there is a clock next to a student's report results, that means that they took the test in a very short time. So if their score doesn't reflect what you know about them, it is possible for students to retake the test, and the latest score from within the window is what is reflected in reports. And the calendar icon just shows that there hasn't been a test in over 8 weeks, I believe. So we may have some students that have that because our last window ended in February. Another key report for teachers is the STAR Instructional Planning Student Report. You'll see a number of different data points. So the first one is which benchmark category the students are in. So red means that they are not yet meeting the benchmark for that time of year for their grade level. Yellow means that they are approaching. Blue means that they are meeting, and green is exceeding the benchmark for their grade level at that time. You'll also see their specific scaled score for their latest administration, and their projected scale score if they would take it again later on. However, this is the end of the year, so this will be their last administration for this school year. And in addition, the PR percentile rank will be included in the STAR Instructional Planning Student Report, and the percentile rank compared to the scaled score is not criterion referenced, it is norm referenced. So it is a way for teachers just to compare students to their peers. So this student with a percentile rank of 76, that means that they scored as well as or better than 76% of their peers, meaning other grade 2 students nationally who took STAR Math, Spanish at the same time. So this is when you scroll down to the STAR instructional planning student report, you'll see the focus skills that are recommended that the student is ready to learn. So these are skills that are, according to their last administration of the test, they are ready to learn at their zone of proximal development. And so these focus skills are tied to the learning progression that I had spoken about earlier. So they are standards-based. Here we have a link here just to see the focus skills by grade and content area if you are curious about that. So, and also the how to document on how to run it. Tied with the STAR instructional planning student report is the STAR instructional planning class report. So you may have gone to a session where we spoke about how you can use the STAR instructional planning class report to inform your small group instruction. So as opposed to just encompassing one student's results, an instructional planning class report will show the median for a group of students. So if you run it for your entire class, you'll see the median scaled score, percentile rank, and focus skills for the median of your class. We do have a link here to a module on how you can create a group in the Renaissance platform for students who are performing similarly, so that when you run an instructional planning class report, it will only include those students who are performing similarly to see skills that you could focus on in a small group. Because this is the last administration for STAR Reading and STAR Math, if you'd like to view your students' progress individually from the fall to now, you can run the student progress monitoring report. You will see a dot for each of their administration, and the color of the dot will indicate the benchmark level of the student for that administration. You will only see this trend line if a student has 4 or more administrations. So if you only assessed for the required windows, you won't see the line, you'll just see the dots. However, an upward trend is what we're looking for to show that students are improving and showing growth in their reading and their math. Finally, I'm going to talk about the State Standards Mastery Report. All of these reports can be run for both reading and math, and these examples are specific to the one that is stated on the slide. For the State Standards Mastery Report, you will have all the students' names listed on the left and the California State Standard at the top. And this report is different in that, as opposed to just telling you their development and level for that time of year, this one is toward the end of year. So because it is the mastery report, it shows you where their level is with regard to mastery for that standard. If you hover over the standard description in the report, it will show the entire description in a little pop-up. And then as you can see, there are students like this for students here who are still beginning at most of their standards that are included in this report. And then there are a few who are developing, and then there are some who are secure. Those who are secure, that indicates that they have mastered that standard for the end of the year. And you can use this information from the State Standards Mastery Report to inform your end of year report cards. If you haven't already been using it for your report cards, this is one way how. What we did is we looked at the standards-based report cards, and we took the statements and we highlighted the ones that are in green that have a standard that is indicated in the standards mastery report. And you can use the level that your student is in for that standard to inform your report card scores. So right here, this uses grade level phonics words solving strategies to read unknown words and text from the standard-based report card for grade 1 in ELA is tied to this standard here in the Standards Mastery Report. So for you to view those for your grade level, we do have the standards-based report cards by grade level linked here. And then if you select this right here, it will bring you to a spreadsheet that lists all of the standards listed in the SBRCs and those with standards in the Standards Mastery Report that are linked to it. And just so that you are aware, the SFUSD benchmarks are linked here, so you can see the benchmarks for your grade level and for STAR Reading and STAR Math in both English and Spanish. So you can see what the ranges are for this end of year window. If you need some additional support while you are navigating the Renaissance platform, you can always select the help question mark or do a live chat. I don't really recommend doing a live chat. Usually it's just a bot, but I do recommend using the help icon, as it does go to a Renaissance help file that usually will explain whatever part of the platform that you're in. In addition to that, we do have our STAR report how to document that lists how to access each of the reports that I've gone over, in addition to the ones in the teacher's guide and more. So with that, we're about to wrap up a little bit early, so we do have some time if there's anybody who wants to ask a question, if there's any questions in the chat or in any burning questions, please let us know now. Otherwise, we'll just go on with the resources and support. Okay. So these are the latest PDs that we've had. We have 2 more for this school year. You can sign up for our May 1st STAR Growth Data to Progress Monitor and Inform Instruction session using this bit.ly link right here. Thank you for joining us for today's. We do post these to the central PD calendar as well. And yes, the slide deck is available in the chat if you just select that bit.ly with the STAR PD Review K8 link.
Crystal, I have a quick one, just because we have so much time and we had a question about lessons. Do you mind going to the platform real quick and just clicking on that pink planner button? I don't know if anyone's had a chance to just kind of explore this, but you all can link directly to lessons that do connect to students' STAR data using this pink planner button. And we have a number of other PDs where we walk you through how to create small groups. And then you can find lessons that connect to targeted lessons for the focus skills for those small groups. So, and a lot of those is exactly what Crystal was talking about on the PD page. So.
All right, thanks, Michelle. There's a question in the Q&A about whether families are notified of STAR assessment results. And so what that is through ParentVUE and Synergy, before parent-teacher conferences for the fall and the winter windows, our department creates student reports for the STAR assessments that are shared through ParentVUE for the students' latest STAR results for STAR Reading and Math within the window. So students will have had to take the STAR tests within the required windows for those reports to be able to be run for those students, and then they are shared on ParentVUE. And yes, they were shared this year. They were shared in November for the fall window and in early March for the winter window. And then Michelle said for this spring window that they will post on May 29th. If you have parents that did not receive or do not have access to Parent View, we can go ahead and share one way that you can, that you can run a report is through DNA. And you'll just type in student report and you'll see an option to run these reports manually. So for example, there's the grade K Spanish district assessment report, and that's where you can run it manually and share with your families if they didn't receive it through Parent View. But it has to be, the test has had to be taken during the window for that to work.
And the student reports will be available in May for just the required grades, K1 and 2. So I know some schools may be administering in other grades optionally as well, so.
And then there is a question, do parents have the right for their child to opt out? When parents do ask these types of questions, it is a conversation to be had with the principal and as for you as the teacher with this family. Michelle, did you have anything to add for that one?
Sure, yeah. Usually, we recommend that, parents talk to the school principal so the principal can share, what the assessments are used for, and they can make an informed decision, and then they can walk through how that would even work exactly. We don't really have a way to turn it off, so um, that would have to be worked out at the site level.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I'll go ahead and move forward. Here are the resources that we have for the STAR that are on our STAR assessment website. It is broken up into the administration, the reports, analysis, and PD of the STAR tests. You can always reach us through email, through aao@sfusd.edu, or call us here at the office at 415-241-6400. We do pride ourselves on responding, and if you don't hear back from us within 24 hours, usually that just means that we've gotten a lot of things sent to us at the same time, but otherwise our goal is to respond to folks within 24 hours or latest within the week. We have our STAR FAQ right here. If you have any other questions, most of them are answered in the STAR FAQ. And every Tuesday from 3 to 4 in this Zoom, we do have some office hours that you can come and ask some questions synchronously if that's easier for you. We know that time that doesn't work for everyone, so that's why we do have our email and our phone number as well. If you are interested in learning more about the STAR test design or the different data points in all the various reports in the Renaissance platform, we do have the STAR Micro Learning Google Classroom available. It has bite-sized modules, very short videos, 2 to 5 minute videos to explain things like scaled score, the learning progression, computer adaptive test design, and item response theory. So if you are interested in learning more the behind the scenes things with regard to the STAR tests, you can go ahead and join the STAR Micro Learning Google Classroom with the link and the join code.